Okay, so another little part of my revolution of ideas, but I guess I'll call this my history of the world, or my interpretation of the history of the world. So, those that don't know me, my name's Scott. I'm watching this, History Channel program about Iraq and the history of basically Baghdad. From Babylon to Baghdad, they call it Great Civilization, where Sumer, where basically the first, where man first started putting a couple bricks together and making himself a home, but also started basically realizing, hey, we can live in a society, because when you look at just how mankind was living, prior to the establishment of, say, kingdoms. Now, and this is going to be part of the idea, but imagine like mankind is just living in these very tribal, very small, mobile little communities, and then once they start settling down, and the reason why is you can imagine all man has basically is hunter-gatherer, tribal, nomadic, following animals, using animals in some way, but really more just like they were kind of like wolves, you could say. So they would follow the migrating herds. They would go from food source to food source. And that's just how all of mankind lived. So it's like you can look at, and anthropology-wise, you can look at the Bush Kalahari people, who just, that's how they lived, just from one little food source to another, and that's that could theoretically be all of mankind, but like 4,000, 5,000 years ago, and really I want to say like about 5,000-6,000 years ago. So as at that point, in fact, it could probably it's probably earlier, because when did I forget when exactly the first migrations into the Americas occurred. So, in fact, let me do that real quick. Okay, so let me clarify what I'm suggesting is that you could say 20,000 years ago, mankind was roaming around in little groups. Mankind had just come out of this, out of the plains of Africa, and were little hunter-gatherer tribal groups. No real established leaders, because remember, leadership is a concept. Leadership is a social, organization. At the point, if you just look at how people would just exist with each other, it's like there are older people who you respect because they're your elders and your parents, and so they dictate, that listen and follow me, and that's understood. So you can imagine this is how just people live for centuries, and you would have arguments between people over like, well, what should we do here or there, and that's you can think that is just why nothing, nobody really settled down. There was nothing really substantial that was produced from these these peoples at this time. But they were effective enough in that they could organize themselves through verbal communication, and because you should also think that, well, people couldn't really live together in groups beyond a familial relationship without communication. If you have two people, or if you have one person alone, and they're like, they talk about children who've been caged, and children who've been they've been shackled to a restroom and only given a bucket of food, and that's all they was interacted with. And these people, they don't develop language because there's no way for them to interact with. And then when you have twins develop twin speak, and it's basically because they're so close and intimate, they're able to relate language to each other. And it's basically literally what that means is that in these small tribal little nomadic groups, you don't have to have language. These people could just grunt at each other, and that's that's all that matters. That's all that works. Or that's all that's required, for you to exist in these little small familial groups, because you also understood, like, okay, these people are younger, these people are older, they're the parents, these are my brothers and sisters, because eventually you're going to see your brothers and sisters born in front of your eyes too, and then you see the people dying around you. So it's like there's that's just how you exist together. Now the thing is, once but these populations, they tend to push out because they get pushed out. There's like competition for resources, so you can't get resources, so you're going to move to the next valley, kind of thing. And as a result, there's not the same resources, and so as a result, you have to work with other people. Well, how do you approach another family group that has, you basically have not interacted with or whatever? But also you think that, well, by this point there would be interaction because how are they, mating with women? How are these guys, because they're not going to have sex with their sister, but they're going to go out and they're going to get a woman somewhere. So but they'll go out and they'll basically grab it and then drag home and rape a girl, kind of thing. And that's that's just the way it was working. And that's something else which I'll talk about later, but. So you could exist in this way, and also, but it could also be friendly. There's also this idea that, well, you just talk to the father, or you gesture towards the father. Hey, we'll give you some arrowheads. We'll give you some arrowheads. We'll give you some food. Give us the girl. And it's like, oh, cool. Hey, yeah, go for it, girl. And so now she has to abandon her family and go live and exist in another family. So yeah, it's still pretty rough. But this early forms of trade. It's just what people have on hand. They have what they can make with their hands. They have what they can carry, or they have each other, and that's and in a weird way, slavery, which I also think slavery by this point has existed, because it just I think it's just how else do you trade people? How else do you use people? And even the Mayan, the Aztecs, and Inca, they had slaves, and even like some of the North American places that had slaves. But it's basically like it's understood that, well, I'm going to basically harness your labor. I'm going to focus your labor. And so that becomes a concept that people are able to, understand that, okay, there is labor which I am controlling, and that's, slavery, basically. But how do you communicate in this matter? How, or what do you do? It's like, because you can grunt a certain way, but they grunt a certain way. And there's so many grunts that reflect what is food and what is this or that. So that's where language develops, because the men have to work together for various goals. For hunting, for certain tools. Like you can imagine that a guy that gets his hand mangled by a bear or whatever other animals are out there, and he's trying to hunt it, but he gets. He gets injured in some way, he can't hunt. So he's going to have to approach these other groups and say, I need help. And as a result, so there's trading, there's trading going on. And it's like, well, you're, and it would be understood, like, well, by these younger guys, like, well, you're an older guy, you have a mangled hand, why should we take care of you? And he would have to communicate some way to them that, they have to work together. So the next evolutionary concept that develops is this idea of a holy man. And so it basically, you kind of see it happen because you're always going to have abnormalities in genetics, in the, just the human, the way humanity works out. So there's always, you're always going to have these abnormalities occur, and there can be mental and physical. Well, how do you understand these? Why are these abnormalities? Why do they occur? And it's just, you don't really understand, but it seems that, well, maybe, this person kind of resembles an animal in some way, so they have some sort of spiritual weird connection, and that's where this idea of an afterlife and spirit, and like talking to the spirit world, begins to exist. And so that's why it's kind of bizarre way you would take the the retard that was just born. I'm sorry I'm using that term, but you're taking the retard that was just created in your little family, little group, and you basically put them in a special position in your group. So it's kind of because it's felt, well, there must be something special about this offspring. That's why they're born differently. And that's why they can't perhaps physically do the same thing, or that's why they can't mentally understand, the same way. And it's like, well, there must be something special. There has to be, because his brothers and sisters are different, or her brothers and sisters are different. So why is this person different? And I think that accepting of that is going to lead and develop to spirituality. And it's also going to lead to language too, but this understanding of language. But it leads to spirituality, which is, generally, and